My name is Claire Bennett, 41 years old. I used to think being the eldest meant being the glue, the one who held every crack together even when the pressure made your hands shake. But sometimes you realize the glue was never holding a family, it was holding a mask. Tessa's wedding invitation arrived on a Thursday. Heavy envelope, wax seal, our names in metallic script, so elegant, it almost convinced me we mattered. Maya was sitting at the kitchen table, pencil tapping against her notebook, her geometry homework sprawled in neat lines. I slit the envelope carefully. Cream paper, gold edges, embossed initials. It smelled faintly of perfume and something else, money maybe, or performance. Or the location was a vineyard 2 hours away. The dress code, formal black tie. And there, at the bottom, bold and polite at once. Adults only, 18 plus, strictly enforced. I read it twice, thinking maybe I missed an asterisk, a small note that said, except for family, or except for Maya. But there was none. Maya looked up before I could fold it shut. She doesn't want me there, does she? I tried to steady my voice. It's an 18-plus wedding, honey. Just a rule. She tilted her head, eyes steady and old for 17. Is it because I'm adopted? It was like she'd dropped a stone into a glass house. Everything inside me cracked quietly. No, I said too quickly. Of course not. But she just nodded, like she'd already done the math, like the answer had been there long before the invitation arrived. I wanted to tell her that families can be cruel without meaning to, that sometimes love gets filtered through layers of pride, control, and old habits. But Maya didn't need philosophy. She needed belonging. And in that moment, I didn't know how to give it. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed with the invitation in my lap. I thought about every little thing that had led here. The way my mom introduced her at parties as Claire's girl, never our granddaughter. The way Tessa called her your daughter, like Maya was a neighbor kid I'd borrowed. The drawing Maya made when she was 8 of our family, that my mother had thanked her for and then quietly tucked away instead of hanging on the fridge beside my nephew's stick figures. I tried to tell myself those were small things, but they had been adding up for years, and the sum was sitting at my kitchen table, asking if she didn't belong. The next morning, I went online, clicked the RSVP link, and selected not attending. No explanation, no notes, just quiet refusal. It should have been over. By noon, my phone buzzed. Tessa, hey, saw your RSVP, everything okay? Then, a second later, if this is about the age thing, I hope you understand. We're being super consistent with everyone. Nothing personal, right? Not personal. Except that Maya was her niece. Except that Maya had spent 3 afternoons making a card for her, the one with the paper bells and glitter that ended up half crumpled in the back seat of Tessa's car, under a Starbucks cup. I didn't reply. An hour later, my sister Rachel texted, Rachel, Tessa said you're not coming. What's going on? I didn't reply to that either. Then the phone rang. My mother, of course. Claire, she began, skipping hello. I heard you're not coming to the wedding. Is this really about the age limit? Maya's not invited, I said. There was a pause, the kind that carries disapproval like perfume. She's almost 18, Mom said. It's not like she's a little kid. Don't punish your sister over this. It's one night. She's family, I said softly. Then prove it by being there. I hung up before my throat gave out. I wanted to scream, but the house was too still. Ethan was at work, and Maya was upstairs humming while she painted. The melody floated down the stairs like something fragile trying to survive the air. That weekend, I found the card she made for Tessa in the garage under a box of old wrapping paper. The glitter bells had peeled off, leaving faint glue ghosts behind. I ran my finger over them and wondered how many other things my family had left to fade like that. Growing up, I'd been the dependable one, the babysitter, the peacekeeper, the bridge. I'd thought motherhood would feel like building a new bridge with stronger foundations. But when I adopted Maya, I realized some bridges weren't meant to connect. They were meant to keep you from falling alone. She was 3 when she came to me, heartbreakingly quiet, watching the world as if it might bite. I remember the first time she called me Mom. I drove away from her preschool and cried so hard in the parking lot I couldn't see the steering wheel. From that day, I made her a promise. She would never feel unwanted in my family, not ever again. And yet here I was, RSVPing no. The next day, Rachel sent a group message to both Tessa and me. Rachel, can't believe you're making such a big deal over one rule. Maya's not the only one not coming. Tessa, yeah, it's not about her. You're making it about her. Mom, family unity is important, Claire. Don't let pride ruin things. We all have to make sacrifices. Sacrifice is always the same word, always meaning me. I didn't respond. Instead, I went upstairs and found Maya sitting cross-legged on her bed, earbuds in, sketchbook open. "Hey," I said softly. "You okay?" She looked up, smiled faintly. "Yeah. I was just thinking about what I should wear to Christmas instead." It was such a small sentence, but it knocked the air out of me. She'd already moved on, already learned what I kept refusing to see, that our family wasn't a safe place for her heart. When she looked back down at her sketchbook, I caught a glimpse of what she was drawing. Two people sitting at a table, one larger, one smaller, a window between them showing rain. I wanted to say I was sorry, that I'd fix it, that somehow, one day, they'd love her the way I did, but even I didn't believe it anymore. So I sat down beside her and just stayed there. We didn't talk. The rain started tapping the window, steady, like an unspoken rhythm only we could hear. Downstairs, the fancy invitation still sat on the counter, the gold edges catching the dull afternoon light. I thought about burning it. I didn't. Instead, I folded it neatly, tucked it into a drawer, and whispered under my breath, "Not attending." For once in my life, silence felt like a full sentence. My house knows the sound of preparation, the metallic clatter of extra chairs, the cupboard door thudding a little off-center, the long stretch of foil over roasting pans, the ritual of pretending everything is fine because the table looks beautiful. This year, it learned a new sound. Nothing. The weekend of the wedding came with perfect weather if you were someone else. Clear sky, a polite breeze, the kind of sunlight that makes vineyards glow in photographs. Ethan made French toast, the good kind with vanilla in the egg wash. The skillet hissed like it was keeping our secrets for us. Maya painted in the sunroom with the windows cracked, turpentine threading the air with something sharp and clean. I kept expecting guilt to kick down the door, but it only pressed its face to the glass and watched. "Want blueberries on yours?" Ethan asked, spatula hovering. "Yeah," I said, and then, because my heart had hands, "Make it a lot." We ate at the kitchen island. Maya balanced her fork in one hand and a pencil in the other, leaving tiny blue arcs on the side of her plate without noticing. At noon, the first distant thought drifted through. Someone somewhere is cutting a cake. I waited to feel the stab of missing out and met a soft, bewildering peace instead. I cleaned because that's what I do when I don't know where to put a feeling. Not the frantic kind, not the rush before company arrives kind, just slow, deliberate movement. I wiped the counter where glitter from the wedding cards still sparkled like stubborn stars. I found one of the paper bells under the microwave and pressed it flat with my thumb, then put it in a jar on the windowsill. A small reliquary for a lesson we were still learning. By late afternoon, the group chat began to stir. The thread had been quiet since I didn't answer their questions about the RSVP. Now bubbles stacked like storm clouds. "Tessa, today is perfect. Wish you were here. Vineyard is gorgeous." Rachel, "Table settings are insane. Claire, you would die. Little gold keys as place cards." Mom, "Thinking of you. It's not too late to drive out for the reception." I set the phone face down. The skillet cooled with a quiet ping. In the sunroom, Maya changed brushes, the bristles swishing in a mason jar. A small blue current moved through our house and didn't pull any of us under. That night, Ethan poured sparkling water into wine glasses and tapped his against mine like a joke. "To doing the unpopular thing," he said. "To breathing," I said, and we both smiled like people discovering they still knew how. Then came Sunday, the long exhale after an event you didn't attend. I expected stories to arrive like confetti, pictures, inside jokes, the catalog of what we missed. Instead, a silence I didn't curate stretched from their side. It should have felt like a reprieve, but it carried warning in it, like the quiet you get from a child who has discovered a permanent marker. Monday morning, I opened the pantry and stared at the stacks of paper napkins I wouldn't need for a very long time. The word host has only 4 letters, but carries 1,000 unspoken agreements. Feed us, seat us, swallow what we say because the food is good. Say nothing as long as the centerpiece is pretty. When Ethan came home that night, he leaned in the doorway of the pantry and said, "Folding chairs?" I shook my head. "No extra seats this year." He didn't push. This was one of the reasons I married him. He knows the difference between a question and a test. He only crossed the room, kissed my forehead, and said, "Then we'll need fewer napkins." December kept moving, indifferent to our decisions. Storefronts built their winter villages. The neighbor's inflatable reindeer groaned against the wind, like it was already tired of pretending to be cheerful. At school, Maya's art teacher requested a series for a hallway exhibit, and she started sketching snow, not as white, but as blue, gray, and green, what it actually looks like before it lands. The group chat woke up on the 15th with the sanctimony of tradition. Rachel, are we still doing Christmas Eve at your place? I'll bring the pecan pie like always. Tessa, we'll be 5 again this year. Let me know if Maya wants anything specific, if she's even going to be there this time. That last line flashed like a camera in the dark. I put the phone down and took a breath that tasted like tin. The sink dripped once, decisively. I read Tessa's message again and realized she wasn't asking. She was announcing her timeline for when my own child counted as a person. I didn't reply. I folded 2 dish towels, as if they were letters, and tucked them into a drawer like envelopes I didn't plan to send. By the 17th, the calls began. Mom first. I let it ring. Then Rachel. Then Dad, leaving a voicemail with his old courtroom voice, the one that thundered in on principle as if it paid our bills. Your mother's upset, he said. It's not too late to do the right thing. The right thing had never been defined, only implied like a folk tale every eldest daughter learns by ear. I made a list on a sticky note: cinnamon sticks, nutmeg, lasagna noodles, sugar cookie cutters. Beside it, another list I didn't write down but kept anyway: reasons I was done asking permission to protect my child. That week, the house shifted into a new rhythm. No rearranged dining room, no debate over whether we had enough spoons, no text threads asking about dietary restrictions none of us followed. Instead, the day moved at the speed of our breathing. Ethan cataloged a box of old ornaments, the ones that always made their way onto the tree last. Fraying string, chipped paint, stories attached like barnacles. Maya sanded a wooden frame for one of her canvases on the back porch, careful rasping that sounded like the ocean if you listened wrong. She came in with sawdust on her sleeves and a question in her eyes. Are we doing anything on Christmas Eve? Yeah, I said, we're doing us. Relief passed over her face so quickly it looked like a trick of light, and then she nodded, like she was fitting the words into a drawer where they belonged. On the 20th, the group chat tone changed. The pivot I knew was coming. You can only knock on a locked door for so long before you start lecturing it about politeness. Rachel, it's honestly wild to cut off family over a misunderstanding. Tessa, we've all tried to welcome Maya. You make it impossible to connect with her. Mom, this is not how we raised you. Family comes first. I typed 3 different answers and deleted all of them. One said, you raised me to be useful. Another said, you welcomed the idea of Maya, not Maya. The last one was just, no. In the end, I pressed no keys and let the words skim past like fish I refused to catch. When Ethan asked if I wanted to drive past the vineyard just to rid the place of its power, I laughed. We can reclaim our city block, I said. That's enough geography for now. On the 23rd, we pulled out the mixing bowls and made lasagna in pajamas. Maya cut cookie shapes that barely held together, lopsided stars, moons with missing bites, a reindeer that looked like a dog in a hat. And we laughed until the oven timer scolded us. We ate by the glow of a tree that hosted only what we loved. On the top branch, I tucked the flattened paper bell in place with a silver hook. It hung lopsided and perfect. While the sauce simmered, my phone buzzed again, a final volley before the holiday truce that wouldn't be a truce at all. Dad, the way you're handling this is cruel. We're your real family. Don't punish everyone because you can't parent without drama. The word real curled in my chest like smoke. I deleted the message, and for once the deletion felt like an act of creation. In the window, our reflections layered. Me, Ethan behind me, Maya leaning over the counter with flour on her cheekbone like war paint. Real is whose hands you hold when the doorbell rings, I thought. Real is who stays. On Christmas Eve, the phone went silent, which is how I knew we'd hear from them again soon. We watched a movie we'd watched 100 times. We laughed at the same parts, because repetition is sometimes how you survive. After midnight, the street outside went still. The kind where you can hear your own house settling, wood speaking to nails, old dialogues resolved at last. Christmas morning arrived without ceremony. We opened gifts in socks. Maya's last present was small, the size of a cassette tape. Inside, I'd tucked the only photo I had of the 3 of us from her first week home. Me with sleep in my hair, Ethan with joy he didn't know where to put yet. Maya looking straight into the lens as if she recognized something. I'd had it framed in the simple wooden frame she'd sanded. She touched the glass with 2 fingers and said nothing for a long time. Then, "It fits." We ate lasagna for breakfast because there are no rules in a house you actually live in. The day moved lightly, like a song you almost remember. At sunset, I felt the old nervousness gather in my throat for no reason I could name. I put my hands on the back of a chair and listened hard, the way you do when a child goes quiet in another room. The porch light flickered once and steadied. The group chat pinged to final time, a message from Tessa that read, "You can't just ignore us forever, Claire. This isn't healthy." I looked at the word healthy and nearly laughed out loud. Maya came to stand beside me at the window. Outside, the neighbor's reindeer deflated slowly, bowing to no one. "Do you think they'll come by?" she asked, like she was asking about the weather. "Maybe," I said. "We'll be here if they do." Her reflection closed her eyes and opened them again, the kind of blink that starts a new chapter, even if the page number doesn't change. "Okay," she said, a small, decisive shape in her mouth. When she went back to the couch, I checked the deadbolt without meaning to. The house hummed its approval, the sound of a boundary turning from idea to fact. I didn't know yet that boundaries cast shadows too, that the porch would become a kind of stage in the cold, that people who worship tradition will knock like missionaries and call it love. For the first time in years, I was not rehearsing what I'd say when they criticized me. I was practicing something else entirely, how to say no without apology, and how to choose the right silence. When I turned off the living room lamp, the paper bell caught the light and flashed as if it were winking. Somewhere between midnight and morning, the doorbell rang. The sound of the doorbell that morning felt foreign, sharp, insistent, like someone knocking on a wound you'd already learned to live with. I wasn't expecting anyone. Ethan was still at work, and Maya was upstairs in her room, working on her portfolio for college applications. When I opened the door, my parents were standing there. They looked smaller than I remembered. Maybe it was the cold, or maybe I had finally stopped seeing them through the lens of obligation. Mom was holding a Tupperware container, her famous oatmeal cookies, the ones soft in the middle, slightly burnt at the edges, the kind that used to mean comfort. Now they just smelled like history. "Claire," she said, breath fogging in the December air, "we thought we'd stop by." I didn't move. I just stared at the container in her hands, half expecting it to explode. Dad cleared his throat. "Can we come in? Just for a minute." "No," I said. It came out flat, steady, final, a word that didn't need armor. They blinked, like I had spoken in another language. Mom tried to recover, her voice soft and coaxing. "We just wanted to talk. Things got heated, but we're still your family." She held out the cookies like an olive branch. I didn't take them. "Please don't do this," she added, her smile starting to strain. "You don't have to be like this." Dad stepped in, lowering his voice into that familiar tone, part lecture, part pity. "We know it's been hard raising a teenager. You've pushed everyone else away, but we've been patient. We've given you space. This," he gestured vaguely toward the house, "this isn't you." The cold crept in from the doorway, wrapping around my ankles. I crossed my arms and said, "You don't get to tell me who I am." Mom sighed, exasperated now. "Claire, listen. You're going to lose your real family over a girl who's going to leave in a few months." The way she said real made something inside me break open. "She's 17, I said quietly. Mom nodded, her eyes almost pleading. "Exactly. She'll go off to college soon. And then what? You'll be alone. You'll regret this." Regret. The word hung between us like frost. Then she said it. The thing I think she'd always believed, but never dared to say out loud. "I'm sorry, Claire, but she's not blood. She's not really one of us." There it was, softly spoken, kindly delivered, like a mercy killing. I took a breath that felt like swallowing glass. "Leave," I said. "Claire. Now." The porch light flickered above us, and for a moment it lit their faces like a flashbulb. 2 strangers caught doing something shameful. Mom's lips trembled. "You'll regret this when she leaves you. When she forgets about you. Our door will still be open. You'll come back. You'll realize we were right." Her voice cracked on right. Dad shifted uncomfortably, probably wishing she'd stop talking. I didn't say anything more. I just stepped back and closed the door. The latch clicked, a sound so small it shouldn't have felt like thunder, but it did. I stood there for a long time, forehead resting against the wood, listening until their footsteps faded down the walkway. Then I locked the door. Not once, twice. That night I didn't tell Maya. I didn't want her to carry the poison, but I couldn't sleep knowing I'd let that sentence sit unchallenged in the air. The next morning, I found her in the living room, sketchbook open, hair pulled back in a messy bun. She was working on a new piece, an empty chair at a long table. "Maya," I said gently. She looked up, waiting. "I need to tell you something. Your grandparents came by yesterday." Her pencil froze mid-stroke. "Okay." "They said things I wish they hadn't." She closed the sketchbook slowly, her movements deliberate. "What did they say?" I hesitated, then decided I owed her the truth. "They said you're not blood, that you're not really part of this family." The words sounded uglier out loud than they had in my head. Maya sat perfectly still. The clock in the hallway ticked louder than usual. Her hands tightened around the edge of her sketchbook until her knuckles went white. "They really think that?" she asked quietly. "Yes," I whispered. She nodded once, slowly, and I saw her jaw set the way mine used to when I was a teenager, defiant, hurt, but unwilling to show weakness. "They think I'll leave you," she said. "They hope you will," I replied. She looked up then, eyes burning with something sharp and clean. "They don't get to hope things about me." That line, that strength, it was like watching a new branch grow from an old wound. I reached out, brushed a curl from her forehead, and said, "No, they don't." We sat there for a long time. The house was silent, except for the rain beginning to tap against the windows again, the same rhythm as the night I'd told her about the wedding. Later, while she was upstairs again, I went to the porch. The Tupperware was still there, cookies gone cold inside. I picked it up, opened the lid, and stared at the burnt edges. Just enough sweetness to trick you, just enough bitterness to remind you why you stopped eating them. I threw them out. That night, I stood at the same door and whispered something I hadn't said in years. "This house belongs to us now." The porch light flickered once more and steadied. I thought that was the end of it. But poison has roots, and mine were already spreading. A week later, my cousin Sarah forwarded me an email. From Rachel Harper, to family group. Subject, about Claire. I didn't open it right away, but the first line showed in the preview. "I'm worried about Claire. Ever since she adopted that girl, she's been different. Distant. I think she's isolating herself. I don't even know if Maya is stable. There's something off about that relationship." My chest went cold. The rest of the message blurred together in my head. Lies dressed as concern, pity pretending to be kindness. Rachel had written a narrative so polished it almost sounded reasonable. And worst of all, she'd sent it to everyone. Aunt Linda, Uncle John, my mother's church friends, even Ethan's cousin, who barely knew us. I stared at the screen until my reflection looked like someone else. When Maya came downstairs that night, she found me sitting in the dark, laptop open, hands trembling just slightly. "Mom," she said softly, "what's wrong?" "Nothing you need to worry about," I said automatically. But she knew better. She always did. She walked over, saw the email, and went still. "They said that? About us?" I nodded. She stared at the screen, then whispered, "Are you going to answer?" "No," I said, "not yet." Because this wasn't about replying, it was about truth. And truth, I was learning, needs room to breathe before it speaks. That night, after Maya went to bed, I opened a blank document. I titled it simply, "For Those Who Wanted the Full Story." And I started to write. Not anger, not revenge, just facts. Every small slight, every unintentional insult, every exclusion. I added photos, dates, screenshots, the crumpled wedding card, the Easter basket tag that said Happy Spring instead of Maya, the drawings that never made the fridge. When I finished, it was long past midnight. I sat there, staring at the glow of the screen, my pulse finally slowing. I didn't send it that night. Not yet. But I knew I would. Because some truths don't explode, they unravel. And once you start pulling the thread, the whole fabric begins to show what it's really made of. I sent the email on a Sunday morning, the kind of morning that pretends to be peaceful. The subject line read simply, "For those who wanted the full story." No emojis, no preamble, just the truth. Inside, I attached what I'd written the night before. Screenshots of texts, photos of invitations, messages, and quiet cruelties dressed as politeness. I wrote a short paragraph at the top. "I'm not asking anyone to take sides. I just want you to see what's been said and what hasn't. I've kept records not because I wanted to hold grudges, but because I didn't want my daughter to think she imagined what happened to her." Then I hit send. The sound of the whoosh was smaller than I expected. I stared at the screen for a moment, half expecting thunder, but nothing came. For a while, the silence was clean. Then my phone began to hum. Some replies were short, cautious. Aunt Linda. "I didn't realize it was that bad." Uncle John. Family's complicated, but I understand more now. Some didn't respond at all. A few quietly unfriended Rachel online. A few didn't believe me, or didn't want to. It didn't matter. I hadn't written it for them. I'd written it for Maya, so that one day, if anyone ever told her she was the reason our family fractured, she could hold up the proof and say, no, the truth just finally stopped pretending. That afternoon, I made tea and watched rain pool on the porch steps. The world kept moving. Cars passed. Birds pecked at wet leaves. Somewhere, someone was probably gossiping about me already. Ethan sat beside me, silent. After a while, he said, "You're shaking." I hadn't noticed until then. My fingers trembled slightly around the mug. "It's not fear," I said. "It's release." He nodded. "They'll talk." "They always do," I replied. He reached over, covered my hand, and said, "Then let them talk to each other, not to you." That night, I blocked the numbers. All of them. Mom, Dad, Tessa, Rachel. Each click felt like a page turning. When I reached Rachel's name, I hesitated. My finger hovered over the screen. We'd shared a room growing up. 2 beds, 2 lamps, 2 lives that had forked into different kinds of silence. For a moment, I almost remembered us laughing. Then I remembered her email. I pressed block. The next morning, my inbox looked like a battlefield. Forwarded threads, fragments of gossip, replies from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. And one message stood out, from a college friend I hadn't expected to hear from. "Claire, I just wanted to say I read what you wrote. It was brave. Most people never call things what they are until it's too late." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. Maya came downstairs a few minutes later, her hair still damp from the shower, holding her phone like it was a fragile truth. "They're posting stuff," she said, "Rachel and Tessa, on Facebook." "What kind of stuff?" I asked, already knowing. "The kind that sounds nice until you read it twice." She showed me her screen, a post from Tessa. "Sometimes people get so wrapped up in proving a point that they destroy their own family. Pray for those who've lost their way." Underneath it, Rachel had commented a heart emoji. I read it, then looked at Maya. "You okay?" She shrugged, though her voice betrayed her. "I just don't understand why they have to make it public." "Because if they said it out loud in private, they'd have to face what it means," I said quietly. She nodded, then set her phone face down. "I don't want to read it anymore." "Good," I said. "You don't have to." We spent the rest of the day cleaning the attic. Something mindless, something grounding. Dust filled the air, softening the edges of old boxes. Maya found her old sketchbooks, ones she'd made when she was 8 or 9. She flipped through them, laughing at her early drawings of cats that looked like lopsided pancakes. Then, suddenly, she stopped. On one page, there was a drawing of 3 people, me, Ethan, and her, standing in front of a house. Above it, she'd written in big, uneven letters, "My forever family." Her hand brushed over the paper. "I forgot I made this." I swallowed hard. I didn't. Later that evening, I caught her taking the drawing downstairs. She slid it onto the fridge, right where all the other drawings should have been years ago. She stepped back and smiled, satisfied. "Better late than never," she said. That night, I sat on the couch, watching her sketch by the glow of the lamp. The room felt warm in a way that didn't depend on anyone's approval. My phone buzzed one last time before bed. A text from an unknown number. "You've made your point. Happy now?" No name, but I didn't need one. I deleted it. Then I turned off the phone, set it face down, and looked across the room. Maya was asleep on the couch, her sketchbook on her chest. Ethan had fallen asleep beside her, one hand still holding hers. And for the first time in my life, I looked at my family and didn't have to explain it to anyone. I didn't need them to understand. I didn't need them to approve. I just needed this. The quiet, the truth, the piece of a door that would never open the same way again. The next morning, I woke to sunlight cutting across the kitchen table. The fridge hummed softly behind me, and on it hung that drawing. Crooked, joyful, undeniable. In the corner of the paper, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. Tiny letters in pencil. Maya's handwriting. It said, "You can't erase me." And I smiled. Because she was right. The years after truth don't explode, they settle. At first, the quiet feels foreign, like walking into a room that used to be loud. But then you realize the quiet was never empty. It was waiting for you. Maya turned 18 that spring. Her hair had grown longer, her laugh louder. She got accepted into an art program, her dream school, on a full scholarship. When the letter came, she didn't scream or jump. She just looked at me, eyes shining, and whispered, "I did it." And in that whisper, I heard everything she'd survived. We celebrated the way we always did now. Small, honest hours. Ethan made pasta. Maya baked her own cake, a lopsided chocolate one with powdered sugar she called snow. The three of us ate around the kitchen island, the same place we'd once opened an invitation that broke something. Now, it was where we rebuilt. That night, she handed me an envelope. "Don't open it until I leave for school," she said. "Why?" "Because it's not for now, it's for when it's too quiet." She smiled, and I felt something catch in my chest. She was right. It would get quiet again. When move-in day came, the sky was gray, the kind of gray that looks heavy, but never rains. We loaded boxes into the car in silence. On the drive to campus, she watched the trees rush by, sketchbook balanced on her knees. I wanted to say 1,000 things, that I was proud, that I was scared, that I still couldn't believe how much I loved her, but none of it felt enough. At the dorm, she unpacked slowly, hanging her art first. Bright, strange pieces, faces made of color instead of lines. She taped a photo of us to the wall above her bed, the one from her 16th birthday, when we decorated the hall with her paintings and no one else had come. In it, we're laughing. I'm holding a cupcake. She's holding a paintbrush. It looked like two people who chose each other on purpose. When it was time to go, she hugged me. Not the quick kind, not polite. A long, full hug that said everything she didn't. When she pulled back, she said, "I'm not going anywhere." I smiled through tears. "You'd better not." Driving home, the passenger seat felt too empty, like the silence had weight. Ethan reached over and took my hand. We didn't talk much. Some love stories are loud. Ours had learned how to breathe quietly. That evening, when the house went still, I finally opened the envelope she'd given me. Inside was a drawing, us on the porch. Me standing in the doorway, her beside me, light spilling behind us. At the bottom, in small letters, she'd written, "We made it home." I pressed the paper to my chest and cried. Not the broken kind of crying, the kind that comes when something inside you unclenches after years of holding. Weeks passed. The phone didn't ring. The family didn't reach out. At first I thought I missed them. Then I realized I missed the idea of them, the imaginary family I kept defending in my head. The real one had been gone for a long time. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think about the porch, about the day they came with cookies, about the words, "She's not blood." I wondered if they ever regretted it, if my mother ever looked at the empty chairs at her table and thought of Maya's name. Then I'd look around this quiet house, the fridge with Maya's crooked drawing, the jar on the windowsill still holding the flattened glitter bell, and I knew the answer didn't matter anymore. One night, Ethan found me standing by the window, staring out at the dark yard. "You okay?" he asked. "I keep thinking about forgiveness," I said. "If it's supposed to be loud, or if it can just happen quietly." He stepped beside me, his reflection aligning with mine in the glass. "Maybe forgiveness isn't something you give them," he said. "Maybe it's something you give yourself, so they can't live here anymore." I nodded. "Then I think I'm ready." Because I finally understood something. Choosing peace isn't weakness. Sometimes it's rebellion. And choosing love, real love, often means walking away from the people who taught you the wrong definition of it. Months later, on Christmas morning, I woke to the smell of cinnamon. Ethan was already downstairs, baking. He'd hung up new stockings, his, mine, and one for Maya, even though she wasn't home. Her name was stitched in gold thread, the same color as Tessa's wedding invitation, but this time it didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. When we called her, she answered on the first ring. "Guess what?" she said. "I got chosen to showcase my painting in the student gallery." "That's amazing," I said. She laughed. "I titled it The Invitation." I froze for a moment. "You did?" "Yeah," she said. "It's about belonging. I painted a door, half open, half closed, the lights on the inside." I couldn't speak, because she'd taken the thing that once shut her out and turned it into art that welcomed the world in. "Send me a photo," I finally said. "I already did," she grinned. "Check your messages." When I hung up, Ethan looked at me. "You okay?" I smiled. "Yeah. For the first time, I think we all are." That evening, I stood in front of the fridge again, the same place that used to remind me of everything Maya was denied. Now it was covered in her work. Sketches, ticket stubs, Polaroids, tiny notes that said things like, "Don't forget to eat and love you, even when you're dramatic." And right in the center, the drawing she'd made at 8 years old, "My forever family." I smoothed the corner where it had started to curl. This house had seen a lot. rejection, defiance, grief, love that refused to apologize for existing. But it was finally quiet in a way that didn't ache. I don't know if I'll ever see my parents again. Maybe someday they'll call, maybe they won't. But I know this. I kept my promise to Maya, the one I made the day she first called me mom. I chose her, every single time. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story too.